Right, so the World Cup starts tomorrow, and we were wondering in the office, what is the current ODI World 11? We've got a few rules for this. It's taking into account recent form, but it also takes into account overall pedigree. Have these players done it in all conditions against the very best in the world on the biggest stage? And also, and this is crucial before we get shouted at in the comments, it only considers players in the roles they actually perform. So, for example, we're not allowed to pick a top 5 of Rohit, Bairstow, Gill, Babar and Kohli because Gill doesn't bat 3 and Babar and Kohli don't bat 4 or 5. So please do remember that before you shout at us in the comments. Does that all make sense, Ben?
Yeah, I think so. I'm sure we've managed to fudge those rules themselves in the 11 that we've picked. But yeah, it is really tough picking World 11s because should we start with the openers?
Well, I was going to say there were 3 non-negotiables where there wasn't really any debate. Shubman Gill, Josh Buttler and Jasprit Bumrah. Gill is the form ODI player in the world. He's doing it against whoever he comes up against. Butler is the most adaptable ODI batter. He obviously had that amazing 2019 World Cup, an amazing 2019 World Cup final. He can keep and captain. And similarly, Jasprit Bumrah is basically the only totally world-class seamer across all phases of an ODI. There's some world-class opening bowlers, world-class death bowlers, world-class middle overs bowlers. Bumrah is the only one really that you'd be happy to give the ball to in all 3 phases, pretty much ahead of anyone else. So we've got those 3 in the team to start off with. Ben, who's opening up top with Shubman Gill?
Well, this is the thing. This is the first almost like real test of the credentials, really, because if you look at openers in the current era, Johnny Bairstow and Rohit Sharma would both have a pretty decent claim to being in an all-time ODI World 11 opening the batting, and they're both still current players. So you should say, well, actually, should it be both those two ahead of Gill even? But actually, Rohit has got a good recent record, but it's not the all-dominating Rohit that we had between 2016 and 2019 when he was just rattling off hundreds sort of every other week. And Bairstow, he's barely played ODIs in the past bit of time. And had he put in a statement knock in that New Zealand series, that might have been just about enough to get him in. And, he's done some excellent things in the past couple of years, but can he be in an ODI World 11 right now?
2 ODI greats who are still really good, but in this position in particular, there's so much competition.
Well, there is, but there's a bit less than I thought actually when I was going through it. Like
you still got players like Warner, De Kock, Bavuma.
Yeah, I guess you've either got guys who are all-time greats but are just coming to the end of their best or a bit past their best, I guess in the case of Warner, or you've got guys who are really good right now but that overall pedigree is slightly missing. So like Milan even would come into that bracket. Devon Conway, I guess, as well. So I think one guy who just about fits into both is Travis Head, and if anything, it's more current form that gets him in because that is absolutely exceptional. It's averaging like about 60 and striking about 120 in the past few years, and he's done that all as an opener. Obviously, he's injured, but we're not going to hold that against him for this. We can be a bit hypothetical in this, although we have taken in general fitness stuff in at some points in this 11. But I think he is the guy really who's got to fit in that. And also I think he'll match quite well with Shubman Gill. Shubman Gill can be the kind of the guy who bats through. Head can really attack the power play. I think that works quite nicely. And also Head adds a bit of off spin as well, which is nice.
And then at 3, Joe Root bats 3, Babar Azam bats 3, Virat Kohli bats 3, Steve Smith bats 3, Kane Williamson bats 3. For us, it wasn't that long a discussion.
No, Babar Azam just... We kind of had a few of us in the office and we look who's at Babar or Kohli and we all went, I think it's Babar. And that's again, obviously Kohli right now is the best ODI player there has ever been. Babar might overtake him by the time he's done, I guess we'll see. But Babar right now, he is the guy that you can just count on to score runs basically every single time, every single conditions. So I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, I mean for me, Kohli is easily in the top 3 ODI batters ever, but his slump was so long. And although there are signs that he's returning close to his best, it's clearly not his best yet. He may well get there during the World Cup. And also Babar has been at such a level in ODI cricket for quite a few years now. I think given how competitive this position is, I think you do just have to take into account that Babar is where he is right now. So Babar Azam, one of the biggest names of world cricket, in at number 3. Number 4 and 5, Ben, we've got 2 left-handers.
Yeah, and this was probably the point, I guess you end up with a lot of these 11. You pick the top and you pick the bottom. Then you have to fiddle around with the middle to make it all kind of make sense as a team. We originally had Ben Stokes in there because, you know, he's Ben Stokes. He's kind of, you'd look at his ODI record overall, maybe compared to some other players, and you think maybe it doesn't quite stack up. And you say that, you know, he was retired until a few weeks ago, but he's the best cricketer in the world. So maybe that means he should just get in. But we ended up not picking him partly because we don't know actually how much he'll be an all-rounder from this point onwards. And we kind of felt we needed an all-rounder in the top 6, which means we've got the other guy who is, you know, one of the great all-rounders the game has seen, which is Shakib at number 4, who's again, maybe not been absolutely at his best in the past few years, but has still been a very consistent performer. And those numbers that he's got, which is an averaging about 35 with the bat and about 25 with the ball, the batting average especially is skewed a bit by some really tough conditions at home in Bangladesh. You know, he's got World Cup pedigree. I think I'm pretty comfortable with that. And then number 5, it was almost more that we had to pick this guy in, basically.
What makes this interesting is that ODI cricket has taken a back seat over the last few years. So people might not have noticed, really, some players have actually been brilliant in this format for quite a long time, and they might not quite get the credit they deserve. And I think this guy at number 5, he is someone who's just been totally world-class now for quite a long time in ODI cricket.
Yeah, so when you actually break down the number of players who have... what's he got now overall runs wise? I think it's about 5,000 ODI runs. So if you just look at that, the 5,000 ODI run bracket, sorry, the 4,000 ODI run bracket, averaging more than 40 and striking above a run a ball, that's David Miller, and he's one of very, very few players to do that. I think you've got Butler in there and de Villiers in there, and that's pretty much it, I think. And then in the last few years, he has stepped that up even further. So he's he's averaging 60 with the bat and striking at about 115. So that's like this Trevor's Head numbers for opening, but doing it in the middle order when there's, you know, the power plays aren't there. And also when you face all these match situations. And what's so amazing about him as well is he so rarely fails. Like, he doesn't really get the chance to make that many hundreds, but I think he's been dismissed in single figures 3 times since the start of 2020. Like, he will always make some sort of contribution, and he seems to just get to grips with the situation. Got a brilliant IPL record as well, which I think it can be relevant in these discussions because it can just show, like, especially at the number 5 slot, he's absolutely nailed that role. There were other people.
KL Rahul was probably the closest one here. He's had a brilliant few years in ODI cricket. Tom Latham's been very good for New Zealand in the last few years. But yeah, Miller just pips Rahul, really.
I think so, yeah.
Butler at 6, we talked about him earlier. And then with number 7, we decided that we needed someone who could also bowl and be closer to a frontline bowler than a part-timer. And then once we stipulated that, once we had Shakib in the side, so you look at a seam bowling all-rounder, really, at number 7, there's only one guy who really stood out, and that's Hardik Pandya. But once we decided it was Pandya, we were pleasantly surprised by just actually how good his recent ODI record is as well.
And he's almost in that Miller bracket of being able to adapt to lots of different situations. And I think that's really, like, I don't know if surprise India fans, but that's just it's really welcome to have a guy who, you know, he comes in as a ball striker and becomes this guy who, you know, is an all conditions kind of batter. Yeah, he's averaging just over 40 with the bat since the start of 2020 and under 25 with the ball. That's
pretty good.
That's brilliant. And also doing that, not really taking the new ball very much, which is something we took into consideration further down as well. So yeah, he fits in. I guess that's our biggest fudge, maybe in terms of position, in that he would mostly be in that top 6 for India. But I think that's just
the
about
role
okay.
in the side is still the seam bowling all-rounder.
Yeah. So who else do we consider there? There's not that many but all-rounders who bowl a lot who could be considered frontliners, not necessarily bowling all-rounders. I wouldn't say Hardik is necessarily that.
But I think that's a really important point, though. I think what an all-rounder is expected to do in a T20 side is very different in an ODI side. In a T20 side, someone you can sort of squeeze them in times of the games that specifically suit them. So, for example, you can get someone who's realistically a part-time spinner, but you bring them on for matchups, for example. So with England, Moeen and Livingston in T20 cricket do a lot of that. They bowl a lot of overs when the matchups suit them.
Or like Ben Stokes in the last World Cup would bowl over 1 and over 7, kind of like the easiest overs to bowl in terms of runs per over.
Exactly. Whereas in ODI cricket, if you're going to be an effective all-rounder, you have to be able to be, you have to be trusted to bowl 7+ overs consistently. And I'm really impressed with Hardik, actually, that he can do that.
Yeah.
And as you say, adaptable enough to bowl in different phases. He's also, he's not just, you know, hit hard lengths and lots of cutters and get lots of wickets, caught deep mid wicket, whatever. He's actually pretty good when he gets the newish ball straight off Bumrah and Siraj as well. So he's incisive up top, adaptable later on. So yeah, Hardik was a standout there.
And those were the two all-rounders really, like Shakib and Hardik. We did when you just filter it by 20 wickets, whatever, since the last World Cup and order it by runs. Those are the two guys who stand out in terms of their averages. I don't think there's anyone else who's consistently delivered in both departments in that time, and that was part of the reason why Ben Stokes couldn't get in, for example. So yeah.
Onto the bowling attack. So we've already got Bumrah there, so we need two more quick and a spinner. That's how we decided we're going to go about it. The second opening bowling spot, it's almost like the number 3 spot. All the other great ODI bowlers at the moment, Boult, Afridi, Siraj, Wokes, Rabada, etc. These are all opening bowlers, and you could only really have one. And then when you look into overall pedigree, we just couldn't not pick Mitchell Starc. Yeah,
Trent Boult was really pretty close here. Yeah, but we might well have a different answer to this at the end of the World Cup, I suppose. But yeah, Mitchell Starc is almost one of those. You do get players whose numbers, who have good numbers, and you might sort of question them. And you have players who have not great numbers. You might say they're actually a bit better than that. Starc has brilliant numbers, and he's better than those numbers are because, you know, he actually will often, you know, miss series here and there where other players might cash in. And he's been leading wicket taker at 2 consecutive World Cups. I think that's one of the most astonishing stats in cricket, really. And to be that good for that long and to still be coming into this World Cup with a pretty decent chance of doing that again.
Just worth reading out his World Cup numbers. He's played 18 World Cup matches, 49 wickets at 14.81, 3 4-wicket hauls, 3 5-wicket hauls, an economy of just 4.5 runs and over.
So that's more than 2.5 wickets a game. Yeah,
and a strike rate of 19. So he basically takes a wicket every 3 overs. And also in 2019 in particular, it wasn't a particularly strong Australia squad that got to a World Cup semi-final and got blitzed in that semi-final, sure. But Starc's total brilliance throughout the tournament was a massive reason why they got that far.
Yeah, Jeff Lemon wrote a good piece for the magazine, which is now on the website as well, looking at where Starc sits. And if you put that cusp of 200 ODI wickets, there's quite a lot of bowlers that have reached that threshold. Starc takes a wicket about just over once every 4 overs, once every 26 balls. No other bowler is under the 30 mark. So Starc he's not just, you know, the best wicket taker that ODI cricket has had. He's that by a distance. And
he totally can blow teams away. Like,
yeah.
He can get the best players out of the opposition and sort of decide a game in the power play. So the other seamer, this is potentially controversial.
Well, I'd say here we almost didn't think about a seam. We thought about a middle overs bowler. I'd
say
that
is true.
And we went for.
And that is crucial. We're looking at someone who excels in the middle. They don't. Their stats aren't reliant on how good they are with the new ball. And also the guy we picked as well is also very good at the death.
Yes, and we went for Pakistan's Haris Rauf. I'm pretty happy with this one, almost just because of like watchability. I mean, this is a great seam attack to watch. You know, 3 very, very different bowlers, but all brilliant. But you look through his recent figures, and when you watch him, there's never something not happening. You know, like he's almost like the master of like the match changing like 2 for 60, say, which is actually in the middle overs a really good set of figures, and it means that you end up with your overall numbers coming out not looking that pretty. Haris Rauf, they do look good, but that average actually improves when he doesn't take the new ball. So
he averages about 22 in ODI cricket as well. So
yeah,
his numbers are really good, even for having bowled in the hardest phases of the game.
And it's less than 20 in the last few years when he's moved away from the new ball, and that's what we wanted this guy to be able to do. And you know, he bowls absolute rocket, so he's going to be effective on any surface. Yeah, there's a few other guys sort of come into it a bit in terms of, I guess you could easily just go down the route of picking a third bowler, because, you know, Trent Boult's not going to be bad in the middle overs, but we wanted guys in the positions they did. I guess Mark Wood might be similar, but you just don't have as much ODI.
Played so little cricket since the last World Cup.
Yeah.
And then there was heated debate over the identity of the spinner.
Well, yeah, and I think we were pretty settled. We were all pretty happy with Zampa over Kuldeep Yadav, which is what we've gone with. But I think there was also debate whether we needed. This is where you can really start to fiddle with stuff, because if you get Kuldeep in there over Haris Rauf, then maybe you get Stokes at number 4. That was something that we considered quite strongly. But we've gone with Zampa. This was really hard. I mean, Kuldeep has an absolutely amazing recent record. In particular, took 9 wickets in 2 days during the Asia Cup against Pakistan and Sri Lanka, teams who can play spin. He can blow away the tail like a Yorker bowler, really. Because if you can't pick him, then there's nothing you can do, really. So I think he will have a very, very good World Cup, and I would not be at all surprised if he takes more wickets than Zampa. But I would say that Zampa's the guy who, in the middle overs against the best teams, and I know he's had some expensive days recently, but in the middle overs against the best teams, he can be the guy that, he'll get Butler caught at long on or whatever, in a way that maybe he's just got that edge slightly over Kuldeep. This was really, really close. There's no slight at all on Kuldeep. If we'd gone the other way, I would also have been quite happy with it. But Zampa's record over quite a long time now is really brilliant. Kuldeep has had his ups and downs. Maybe you'd question the overall pedigree somewhat.
And also, we don't need someone to blow away the tail when we've got Ralph, Bumrah and Starc.
Yeah, no, that shouldn't be too much of an issue. Yeah, so that's what we went with. And we also we did discuss, in any case, going with 2 spinners and Kuldeep over Ralph. And I guess Kuldeep would probably be the 12th man in this 11, I suppose.
Yeah, and I guess as well, like Adil Rashid, brilliant World Cup winner with England. I think right now he's probably a better T20 bowler than he is an ODI bowler.
Yeah,
and I think, again, sort of like Miller, I don't think people realise how good Zampa has been in ODI cricket for a really quite long period of time now. So we have our 11: Shubman Gill, Travis Head, Babar Azam, Shakib Al Hassan, David Miller, Josh Butler, Hardik Pandya, Mitchell Starc, Adam Zampa, Haris Ralph, and Jasprit Bumrah. Kuldeep Yadav running the drink. So 3 players from India, 3 players from Australia, 2 from Pakistan, 1 from England, Bangladesh, and South Africa. Cheers for watching, folks. We'll be back for our first World Cup Daily podcast tomorrow.